All right, we'll start the class in one more minute. The homework is also in system, right? So everything related to Code.js should be on system. All right, I think most everybody is here. Welcome, everybody. Today is the second day of STEM-based web development class. Today we will be covering more HTML. So yesterday we looked at the H1 tag, right? We looked at the HTML tag, which is just like the whole thing, right? We learned at doc type, right? We looked at doc type and we looked at the head tag. Okay, I'm gonna have to turn the drawing off. Um, let's see, how do I turn off the, okay. Okay, so let's get back to the lesson. So yesterday we looked at H1 tags, right? So we looked at the heading tags. Um, Today we're gonna learn how to stylize the text. So we're gonna go more in depth on that. And we also learned the body tag, right? We're gonna head tag, body tag, HTML tag, and heading tag. So obviously, you can't put images between headings, right? That's a separate tag. But let's think about it this way, right? Let's say we put text in between the heading tag, standard web page, right? Now we have a separate tag. This is an EM tag, right? So this is just stylizing that same text. So in this case, this is known as italicizing. So just kind of making the text more slanted, right? So that's what the EM tag does. It's like italicize. And we're going to look at other tags that stylize the text. All right. So let's look at all the tags. So one tag is the paragraph tag, right? So I can have paragraph one, paragraph two, and then we can see here, the results are here. And one thing about the paragraph tag is that it has an automatic break. What that means is that it automatically puts the text on the next line. So we see here, since these are two separate paragraph tags, you can see the first paragraph is above the second paragraph. So there's a break in between them, right? Um, so yeah, that's what the paragraph tag does. And notice again, we have that slash tag there. That's the closing tag, right? We already learned for the heading tag, there's a slash before like uh before the two brackets, right? So we're going to keep that here. So there's going to be a slash there in all the closing tags that we learned. And note that there's an automatic break. So yeah, that's what I mentioned, right? There's an automatic line after the paragraph tag. Sorry. So, however, if we put them both in the same paragraph, right? I'm not sure where that went. Okay, so yeah, if you just have normal HTML like this, right? If you have normal like paragraph one here and then paragraph two on the next line, it's still going to show us right next to each other. So even if you write like this in the HTML, it's just going to be next to each other unless you have those paragraphs tags. If you have those paragraph tags, then they'll move on to the next line and the next one, right? And we're going to go into this like line breaks and whatnot and white space in more detail in these slides. But first, let's look at the EM tag. So we already saw the EM tag with that Leaning Tower of Pizza, right? Well, let's look at an actual application of the EM tag um, rather than a visual one. So let's say this is the text, right? This is important. And it's enveloped by two EM tags, right, on either side. So what's going to happen to the text in the middle? Anyone, I guess, in the chat, what's going to happen to the text in the middle? Will be italicized, yes. So, fortunately, I can't look at the chat while sharing my screen for some reason. But you can see here, this text is going to be italicized. And notice that the only text that's italicized is the text inside of the EM tag, right? So nothing outside of it is affected. All of this stuff here, that is unaffected, right? So this is unaffected. This is what is affected by the EM tag, right? So unless it's within a tag, it's not going to be affected. That's generally how HTML works. Okay, next we're going to look at the strong tag. Now the strong tag does is that it bolds text, right? So I'll be back, and back is within these strong tags here, right? So what's going to happen to back is that it's going to be bolded. Again, notice that only the thing within the strong tag is bolded, nothing outside of it. And also notice that there's a slash here at the ending tag because, again, all ending tags have a forward slash. Now we're going to look at a tag that actually doesn't have a forward slash. So there's no closing tag, and that is the horizontal rule. All this does, right, is it creates a horizontal line, right? And why this doesn't have a closing tag is that there's nothing to put in between it. So if you have a paragraph tag, if you have a bold tag, HTML needs to know what to bold. It needs to know what to put in the paragraph, right? So it has content inside of it. But the HR tag, there's no content inside of it. All you're saying when you have an HR tag is that you want a line. So since there's nothing to put inside of it, there is no closing tag. And all it does is creates a horizontal line on the screen. So if I have this above, then I have HR in the middle, and then I have below, we're going to see a line in between above and below. And some practical applications, we can look at this, right? Even in our web development, like if you look at the sign up page, you can see right here. You zoom in case anyone can see it. You can see right here, like we use gray HR tags, right? So we are using it to separate the sections. So we can often see these used in like things like separation, stuff like that. Go back to full screen here. Okay. The next tag we're going to learn, right, is the BR tag. And that's just the line break tag, okay? And again, this also has no closing tag because all this is doing is tell HTML to go to the next line. So again, like we saw with the paragraph tag, right? The paragraph tag automatically went to the next line. But if you want to do that within one paragraph, all you need to do is put in a BR in the middle and it'll move to the next line. Or even if you want to add a line in between like the heading and the paragraph, for example, all you need to do is BR. That'll add a space in between, right? So for example here, let's learn with how HTML deals with white space, right? And what is white space? White space is just it's space that is empty in the code here. So we see P. Sherman, 42 Wallaby Way, Sydney, Australia. So you would think that these would go on consecutive lines, right? So you would think this is how we would display in the website. That's wrong. HTML is actually going to put all of these next to each other. And why it's going to do that is that these are all in the same paragraph tag, and HTML doesn't consider white space, right? So it's going to treat all this white space as a single space. So we're going to see here, all of these things are right next to each other, right? So HTML is just kind of ignoring like how you formatted this here. It's just writing everything right next to each other. So the correct way to do everything in the next line. So again, like we said, white space gets displayed as a single space in the result page, right? So the correct way to do this is to actually put a BR tag in there, right? So this is what we're doing here. So again, even adding an entire space like this is not going to change the result, right? So even with this, it's going to look the same. So if we go here, we see the BR tag here, right? Now this is going to look different. Now we see everything here. Okay, Zoom AI companion, not sure it's doing anything. Okay, um, so now we can see it. Everything in this list is on consecutive lines, right? So we can see here that the BR tag, all it does is it moves this to a new line. That's all it's telling. It's telling HTML to go to the next line, right? And we also saw H1, right? That's one of the first tags we learned. On day one, we learned the H1 tag. And you might have wondered why there's a one after the H, right? Why do we need to say one after the heading? That's because there's also other heading sizes. And counterintuitively, as the number gets bigger, the heading actually gets smaller. So H6 is significantly smaller than H1, even though you'd think it's the other way around, right? So as the number gets bigger, the heading gets smaller. So this is an example of that. H1, we can see here, is pretty big. And then H6 is all the way down here. It's quite small, right? So all the tags we learned, like strong and EM, right? Strong EM, those are what we like to call nesting tags, right? What that means is that you put these within the text and only some of the text is affected, right? Only the text that's within the nesting tag. So strong and EM, these are examples of nesting tags, right? And what they do, they italicize, they bold. These are nesting tags. So I would memorize that, right? So again, here's EM. That's also a nesting tag. I'm not sure why you guys are requesting remote access of my computer. You shouldn't be doing that. Okay. Um, so right, EM and strong, these are nesting tags, right? And you can see here, this is going to be bolded and italicized because it has both tags. So you can use both tags. And then these are the formatting tags, right? So these are all formatting tags. So all the tags we learned so far, paragraph, EM, strong, HRPR. So these are all like tags that affect how the website look. So I would just memorize this. And I would also memorize the tags and what they do. But again, that's kind of self-explanatory, right? The tags are often just a shorthand of what the tag does. So paragraph is really just P, emphasis is EM, right? So there's not a bunch to memorize, but I would keep these in mind. And I'm going to actually show you these in action so that no one is confused. Let me go to separate. All right, let's go to sandbox, create an empty program. With HTML. Okay, so this is the default, right? Let's replace this with what we learned from yesterday, right? So let's have HTML here. So this can be a web page, right? Let's add a head. Give it a title. Now let's add a body. Let me zoom in for anyone who can't see it. Can everyone see this text okay? Sometimes the screen share text is too small. Thumbs up, thumbs down. All right, I see thumbs ups. Then I'm gonna have a body, right? This is where I'm gonna have most of my code. So now let's say here, I don't want this welcome to my web page. I want to have a heading, right? Let's say H1, right? Now I'm gonna say stem Bridge offers many courses, right? And then I save that. I reload this page, and here we say STEMbridge offers many courses. You can see that there. And now let's tell the website viewers what STEMbridge actually offers. So we're going to add a paragraph here, and let's make up some courses, right? So the courses offered are Webdev, Python, Java. We don't offer Java, right? I'm just putting it as an example. Um, Webdev, Python, Java, physics, chemistry, and proper refinements. Okay, some random courses. Now I want everyone to guess what is going to happen, right? Let me stop the screen share. So what is going to happen? Is it all going to be on the same line or next to each other? Or is it going to be in consecutive lines? Is it going to be on the next line? Yeah, so it is going to be on the same line, right? And the reason it's going to be on the same line is that we did not use a break tag. So if we save this and we reload it, it's just going to say the courses offered are Webdev, Python, Java. Okay, so all of these are just on the same line. So now let's add a break tag after everything, right? So BR here. Let's just copy this, add it here, 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 and here. And we don't need anything in the last one because there's nothing after that, right? So we don't need to go to the next line. So we click save, we reload this, and now we see all the courses are on separate lines, right? And it just makes them much easier to read, right? If you saw a long list of text of all the courses, you're going to have trouble differentiating between them. So this is just improves readability. Now let's say I wanted to separate the heading and the paragraph, right? I don't want these to look like they're on the same section, right? So what I would do here is add an HR tag, right? And what that's going to do is just going to add a line. So we here, right, see right here, there's a line, right? I'm going to zoom in a bit more in case anyone can't see it. We added the HR tag. Again, the HR tag doesn't need a closing tag because there's nothing enclosed by the HR tag. And we see here, there's a line on the right-hand side. Now let's say this website needs a bit more pizzazz, right? This looks kind of boring right now, right? This looks kind of boring right now. So let's make many italicized. Let's emphasize that point, right? So we're going to add em tag. Right now, you might think we're going to get italicized, but actually nothing's going to happen, right? If I do this, nothing happens. Why does nothing happen? Because there's nothing in between the em tag, right? There's nothing in between the em tag, so there's nothing that HTML italicizes. Again, it's not going to give you an error because this is still valid, but there's nothing to italicize. So let's take this many, right? Let's delete it here. And let's put it in between the em tags. And now we click save. And now let's reload the page. And now we see that the word many is italicized, right? So now that we added these em tags at the end, we can see that the word many is actually italicized. And that's a basic overview of everything we learned today. Oh, one more thing. There's also the strong tag, right? So let's say I wanted to emphasize one of these courses, right? Let's say copy refinement. I put a strong tag here. I put a strong tag there. I click save. I reload. We see here now, copy refinement is bolded, right? It wasn't bolded before, but now it's bolded. Let's say we want just refinement to be bolded and we want it to be italicized. What we can do is we can add an EM tag within that strong tag. Again, this is completely fine, right? We can add tags within tags, and we don't even have to have them right next to each other. So this will work. So let me just move this tag to the end of this, right? So now we're going to have and copper, which is going to be, this entire thing is going to be bolded because both of these are within the strong tag. And then we're going to have refinement, which is not in the strong tag, but it is in the EM tags. Let me zoom in a bit more for people who can't see. So you see that? And strong copper EM refinement. Okay. So now I click save and reload. And now we see just refinement is bolded and it's italicized, right? So we don't have to apply both nesting tags to the text, right? We can add them to separate parts of the text while still being nested in each other. Again, I could do this the other way around. I could say this entire section is italicized, right? I could say this entire section is italicized, but only refinement is italicized and strong, right? And if I save that, again, this time we're going to have italicized for this whole piece of text. And then we're only going to have the strong, or what is the bold, outside of refinement. So what's going to happen? Everything here is italicized. Copper and refinement are italicized, but only refinement is bold, right? So this can go both ways. So that should be about everything we learned today. Probably stop sharing my screen. Okay. So how can we color the text? So that's CSS, right? We're not going to learn CSS yet. CSS is coming on Friday. So stick around for Friday. Also, guys, no fighting in the chat, right? Okay, so let's get into GimKit. Let me first do a quick poll of how many of you guys understood this. Morning class, I did a poll. I'll tell you guys how they did after this one. Okay, I launched a poll. I forgot to title it. That's okay. All right, did you guys understand today's lesson? Okay, 91%. Wow. Morning class, it was 96%, so a little bit better, but 91%, that's still pretty good. Again, if you're ever confused, don't feel like left out or anything. We're going to have the slides posted. We're going to have the recordings posted so you can go over anything you missed. And there's also videos in CoreOS if you're really, really stuck, right? So we have all these, resources for you, for anyone who does not understand. Okay. So before we do GimKit, I want to quickly say something. You guys did the CodeHS assignment, right? I actually saw the CodeHS stats and only about 50% of people did it. Yes, I can see who did it, who didn't. But you don't have to lie. For those who did you guys see blocks instead of seeing text? Did you guys see blocks of coding? Like put it in the chat if you saw blocks. Like just put blocks in the chat. No? Okay, that's good. That's good. Okay. So at first when I opened CoreHS, I saw the blocks and then I turned it off in the settings. I was just wondering if anyone saw them still. But let me share my screen to show you what to do if you ever see the blocks. So it's by blocks, I mean like scratch coding, right? That's what it looks like. So there's this toggle called block coding, right? and it'll be on by default for some people. Just turn it off, right? Just toggle that toggle, and then it should go away. Yeah. So if anyone, it does have the blocks. All right. And yes, today we have 1.2 for homework. Yesterday was 1.1, today is 1.2. And again, the thing is open. So let me share my screen now and we can do GimKit. But actually, I need to, let's choose what mode. Is everyone okay with don't look down? Or do you guys want Fishtopia? The other ones aren't very good with lots of people, so. All right. The poll should be launched. It's an intense battle. Wow. Keeps changing. Looks like Don't Look Down is winning right now. Okay, I think we're gonna have to look, don't look down. Please don't spam in the chat. So we have the poll, right? The chat is not gonna change my opinion. All right, don't look down then. Um, we'll do 15 minutes. We're gonna have checkpoints on. I'm gonna trust you guys to enter your own names in, but put in your real names, right? If I see any inappropriate names, I will kick you. I'm still creating the game, so there's no code yet. All right, there's the GimKit link. Look to the chat. Also share my screen. This is the code. Not sure why it does that. I don't know why it keeps switching here. It's very odd. I'll wait one more minute and then we'll start. Again, you can also start after the game already started. So if the game starts, don't worry, you can still start late. You can join late, sorry. We'll wait a little longer and then we'll start. All right, let's start the game. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me in the chat. So if one of the questions confuses you, you can ask me. You know, more than 60 people can play? Really? Huh. I searched online and said there was no limit for a game kit, but I guess there is. Well, it happened last year. I think it might have happened while I wasn't there for the class last year. Um, we might have to upgrade our game kit plan then. The link to the game kit is above. I can paste it again. So again, if anyone has any coding questions, you can ask me in the chat right now. No more than 60 people yet. Um, I'll try and figure out something. But for now, this is gonna have to do. Yeah. And there's white space. White space is that space after like so let's say I have this, right? Let me just type it in the chat. Maybe it'll be easier to explain. So here, this is like an example paragraph, right? So if I have two things here, all of this space after hello is the white space, right? And then hi is after that. So all of this space is white space, and HTML will just like ignore it. Is HR the horizontal line? Yes, HR is a horizontal line. System.io isn't working for me. It isn't connected to CodeHS. Okay, I'll answer all system questions after the class. Anyone has any other coding questions? For the question, what is an structure of HTML document compared to how is the answer a tree? Okay. I think we overviewed this briefly on the first day, but not exactly expected to know it. But remember we saw that diagram? I'll sort of whiteboard or something. I'm gonna skip GimKit because it's laggy. If you really hate it, you can just do code HS. So yeah. Can we add on to the GimKit some more fun questions, competitions, prizes? I'm not sure about the prizes part because we're already paying a lot of fees and stuff. So yeah. Um, and we're also gonna do a GimKit like every day. So this is just to help learn. It's optional. If no one else could write on the thing, that would be amazing. I don't really know how to change that setting right now. Um, okay, so what is a tree, right? If I'm gonna, this is a tree. Okay, guys, can you stop drawing? Okay, I'm gonna have to figure out how to stop this. Okay, no one should be able to edit anymore. So let's look at what a tree is, right? For those of you who are curious, you don't need to know. But if you are curious what a tree is in the question, this is like the HTML page, right? And this is like kind of contains everything, right? So some of you guys might have already heard of tree terminology from like Java or Python. So this is going to split into the head, and this is going to split into the body, right? For example, these are like kind of like children, if you think about it, like if you check at other programming classes. And so let's split this, right? Let's say inside the body, we have a P tag, right? So paragraph. You can't see the whiteboard? Or okay, you can't draw. Okay, yeah. That's by design. So we have the paragraph and we have the heading, right? That's kind of one way to think about it, right? Let's say within this, I have an EM. So let's say italics. So that's kind of one way to think about it. If you think about it as a tree structure. So yeah, am I going to have to turn off the cursor as well? Okay, that's what a tree structure is. The game kit should be over by now. Um, there's still time left in the game kit. Uh, okay, I think we can end the game kit here. Or it's only 1 minute left. Let's just wait until the game kit ends, and then anyone who still has questions can ask them. If you have any coding questions, you can let me know right now. I can explain them on the whiteboard here. Does the title appear in the tab box? Okay, so when you open a website, right, let me share my screen. All right, let's look at the game kit winners real quick first. All right, I guess a Afraz won. That's not me though. Uh, yeah, I was at the bottom here, so that's me. But yeah, congratulations, Afraz on winning, and Aban and Rehan, Safwani, Pence, and Harun. All right. Um, so what the title does, right, is you see with this place where it says host GimKit, that's what the title is, right? So that's what it does. We don't see it in Code.js because Code.js doesn't actually show us the tab, right? But that's all that the title does. If you go into inspect element, we can probably see that too. Um, it's probably somewhere here, but yeah. Okay. Um, anyone who doesn't have any questions, you can leave now. Have a wonderful day.